showed up for the COVID testing, line up, and we'll go ahead and test you. We got a little bit to cover this morning. We'll start off by calling roll, please.
Mike Bell.
Here.
Bill Britton.
Here.
Tony Cox.
Here.
Bob Garrett.
Here.
Tom Hofer.
Here.
Tim Horner.
Here.
Keith Jackson.
Here.
Matt Lacy.
Present.
Tom Rush.
Here.
Dan Winter.
Here.
Appreciate everybody for coming out this morning. It was starting to drizzle when I came in. Did it ever open up and actually rain, or just threatening?
The tease.
It'll be raining when we go out the door.
Yeah, that's right, it'll open up. All right, first order of business, public comment. Anyone like to share something with the board this morning? Morning, Gwen, hadn't seen you in a bit.
Morning,
You
Mr.
doing
Cox.
well?
Yeah, I hope you are too.
Yes, ma'am. All right, in your packet was the minutes from the last meeting. Any additions or corrections?
Make a motion.
Motion to approve, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, minute stands approved. Amy, talk to us about our money.
Okay, you should have received the July financials. Just a couple of items to point out. I will note, even though these are as of July, there has been a transfer of some of the funds out of the First Horizon sweep account into the LGIP general account. We did that because of the earnings potential, although neither are at a great rate. LGIP is slightly higher. Tom will probably address that, but just to inform you of that. Also, an item to note, there was a payment for insurance made in July. We had, at Tom's request previously, treated the majority of that as prepaid, and so you'll see some prepaid expense on the statement of net position. And then in the income statement, you'll see some expense for the insurances, but that's only 1/12 of the amount. So we're trying to make that change this year. Also, just one item to point out, in the budget column, what is presented here is the budget that was approved in June. It does not include the change for the car allowance for Dan that was made in July. I think we need to address, or possibly address, whether or not there's any other change that needs to be made related to gasoline, other expenses for that change. So I just wanted to point that out. But for net for the month of July, we're just under 141,000 net income.
Questions or comments? What are your thoughts about the budget?
Can I had a worksheet, I'll kind of have a starting point if I can pass that out. This is just a starting point, I guess. If you look at the middle column, that's our current budget for those items that are impacted by the vehicle allowance. The total between the employer's portion of the FICA, the pension contribution, maintenance, repairs, vehicles, travel and training, and gasoline, all total to $113,678. So that's currently what we have in the budget. So I've just come up with a couple of options, I guess, just to kick us off. The first option to the right would result in a net increase to the budget of $2,018. So we would add in the car allowance of $7,800. That results in the employer's portion of FICA going up $597. The pension goes up $1,121, but then I've also proposed reducing repairs from $6,000 to $4,000, training and travel from $8,000 to $5,000, and gasoline from $5,000 to $2,500. And those amounts more closely align with what actually happened last year. So that would raise the budget 2018, Or another option would be to not lower those last three items as much and go back to the same budgeted amount we had for the previous year. So I'm just throwing those two options out on the table. Because my recommendation would be option one.
All right. Dan, you got thoughts?
I think that'll work just fine.
Any other comments or questions? Just recommendation for option one.
Need a motion?
I'll consider that a motion if you want a second.
I'll second
All right. We got a motion second to amend the budget as reflected under option one. Motion second, since it is the budget, let's call the roll.
Mike Bell,
Yes.
Bob Garrett,
Yes.
John Hofer,
Yes.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Keith Jackson,
it. Yes.
Matt Lacy,
Yes.
Tom Rush.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Tom, I appreciate that, that helps get us back on track. Tom Howard, you're up. Amy talked about investments and rate of return, you're making a lot of money on interest earnings.
Somebody is, Bill Moore. Warren Buffett or somebody out there is. But, the First Tennessee accounts, actually, the rate adjusted down, if Amy correct me if I'm wrong, from 0.4 to 0.15, effective July 1. We don't earn on the first 250,000 that we have up there. That's a compensating balance just to offset the analysis fees and charges that they have to maintain our account. Also, the rate at LGIP has dropped to 0.31, and I called the state just to confirm this. They charge a 4 basis point service fee on our account, and I wanted to make sure that it's not reflected in the rate that's disclosed on our statement, and it's not. So the rate that's on our statement is the net rate, and that's what we actually earn, and we're getting all of 0.31. So,
I will have some shoebox.
do what? Yeah, if anybody's got a jar in their backyard, we're not gonna put it there. But it is a little bit more than we get at First Tennessee, so we've been trying to move the money over. We've moved, or we have moved 70,277, which was the tipping fee for the I guess for the quarter of April, May, and June. So that was transferred from the general account over to the LGIP capital account. And then we also transferred 500,000 from First Tennessee to the general fund with LGIP. So those are the two transfers that we've made this month.
Any questions or insight for Mr. Rush and our investment holders?
I got a suggestion. I'm gonna put about 2 million in Apple stock. What did you grow?
We'd be just like Forrest Gump, wouldn't we?
That's great.
We did, yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Dan. T-Deck.
Had two very good T-Deck inspections this month. One was facilities and one was the landfill. Facilities inspection involves coming in, checking our paperwork, make sure our record keeping is stored correctly and readily available if they ask for it or anybody needs it. So both inspections went well there. They did ask us to go ahead and if we would mow the old city and county landfills to where they could come and do an inspection on those as well here in the very near future. So we're processing all those now. Any questions on inspections?
You just mow those once a month or once a year, or once every time they ask you to mow?
Must be mowed. An active landfill is twice a year minimum, and based on your permit, our permit said we have to have 3 men mowing it twice a month, I believe. But we will adjust that when we.
Yeah, we're gonna adjust that, that's twice a year is plenty.
Or whenever you get small trees starting to pop up, they want you to go.
Saplings.
Yeah.
That bush hog on the skid steer works good for that.
Yeah. It's basically, we start, and he never gets finished. Time he gets finished, it's time to start all over again, so. It's a constant battle. On the next item, scales, repair, and preventive maintenance. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had some severe thunderstorms. Twice in 1 week, we were sapped by lightning strike in the old set of scales, and the grounding is not up to what the new one is. The new scales was fine in the old, so we had two outages where they had to come and do a repair, and they're going to put some ground rods in and upgrade a couple pieces of the equipment that were damaged as well. It's temporarily fixed.
Better that than our dozer.
Yeah.
So Glenn got the new scale grounded right there.
But your analog and digital, and some reason, the lightning likes the analog a hole up there, and it likes the digital, and it's like it's been transferred over to that scale because it's still released.
Lightning does pretty much what it wants.
That's where it's been discharged.
Yep.
Number 3, Tony, you asked me to put together some contracts, information, all that stuff. I don't know how you want me to go through this. I put together as much information as I had readily available. Had a visitor last month that has a lot of the information that I could not get access to, so I've asked Steve to put some information together that I couldn't get. And if I can request any other information that you might want from the comptroller's office if needed.
Okay. Tom, I think you were the one that asked for the schedule by date. Trying to remember what else you wanted on that schedule.
You do that, Tom.
I think that's all I asked for, so you can see them as they come due in chronological order.
Some of these don't have contracts, I see.
A lot of them are just open-ended, whatever.
Which is the next one to expire? Or to roll over? I guess what we want to do is we want to make sure that something doesn't roll over, we hadn't at least looked at it.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 that are up right now. Fairbanks, their service, it should have been in the packet.
Number
It's-
4?
Huh?
Number 4?
Yeah.
So is that the expiration date, the 6/23/20?
No, that's when it come due. We haven't
You haven't signed anything?
We haven't signed anything yet, it's due now. It did go up a little bit from last year because they're now servicing 2 scales instead of 1. And that is quarterly inspections and calibrations. And the $850 is also the trip charge for any work they have to do outside of the quarterly inspections. So if we go down and they have to travel, it's $850 plus labor and parts.
All right, you got tire recycling with a date but no contract. What's that mean?
It's just a normal product, and it's on paper, but there's no contract signed. That's what they're doing. If I signed the contract, I felt that it would commit me to one recycling company. And there's only 2 to deal with, so if you sign with one and you can't get them back up there, then you kind of play both against the middle. Liberty, they use, what is it? They do not own their own trucks. And whenever their trucking company that hauls their tires, anytime there's a hurricane or a national disaster, every one of their trucks goes with it, and we can't get tires picked up. So
Steve, what's your base contract at Lamar done? What's the base contract's not on here?
I think it's on there, isn't it? The 1920. We get a new budget. We present a new budget every year. So next year's is 355, 201, 58. That handout I gave you last year's budget was dang near the same. It was 352.5, and our total billings were 334.5. But we also had a fair amount of stuff added. You can see those top two items highlighted was some pretty intense monitoring that the state added to us that was not in the budget. There's two items in there that were under the capital projects, but I just include them all. And in our contract, I forget what we've got, probably a third of that is passed through geotech for, doing your sampling and monitoring for the closure and, some of the well installation, stuff like that that comes up. It's always something new with them.
So on the contracts list, then, number 6, the 355,201, is that for 2021 instead of 1920?
Yeah.
That's 2021, right?
I think so. There is.
For the current fiscal year, not last fiscal year.
The
Well,
proposed,
I can imagine that we budgeted since, but
the budgeted, I've got the budget here, it looks like we had 80,650 on meetings, miscellaneous design, consulting, and then we had 178,800 on sampling, lab, and reporting. Are those two the correct amounts that are in the budget?
I handed out this same sheet, and I don't have it, but the sheets, I've got last year's, Amy, that I gave you. Where is it? That looks like. There was a list that basically had these items on it, and I thought I brought that with me, but I didn't.
259, 450.
Yeah.
You better fix that if that's the case.
This is what I gave you, but that's for last year, I thought, before we looked at it.
well, I think Bill's question is what you have listed here, or whoever
I didn't
listed.
list that, so.
What is that number? Is that last year's budget? Is it this year's budget? What does that 355?
On the contracts list,
Yeah,
I think
I
that's,
pulled, we run a report on what we paid out, that's how I got all these numbers.
so that was 1920, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's 1920.
so I'm a couple $1,000 off.
The amount in the budget we got is 259, 450.
well, that's for operations.
Is there
Then, if you look
There's
at
some
the capital
for your
expenditures
closure.
for the permitting the expansion and closing, then there's additional 211.5.
Is that in the,
It's in capital expenditures budget.
gotcha.
Yeah, if you remember, we reduced the budget.
Right. I just didn't want to leave $100,000 out of the budget if it wasn't in here.
No, the numbers I get, these numbers are from last year.
So the two down there in the capital was 70,000 and 141.5.
That's right, for 211.5.
Just thinking out loud, I guess on these contracts, I think if I was looking at it, I'd just like to see, maybe they're on a spreadsheet, they're in order, you know, maybe some of this information is spread out, and then the maturity date would be on there, and we can see what's coming due each meeting and know what we need to get the proposals in for. That way they can be in order by maturity date. So is there a contract now with Fairbanks that we need to be considering for approval? Have they given that to you yet, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
That's the first one we need to look at.
yes, yeah.
And that is the 850 quarter.
And I think if we had that report maybe monthly or quarterly, it'd just be in front of us, and we could see what's coming due, and we can add to it, take away from it as we need to, in the spreadsheet format, so that'd be my thoughts.
I agree.
All right, if we could do that, we think we want to see in the next agenda, a contract, or proposed contract with Fairbanks.
Yes.
Rutherford Moss, have we executed the agreement
Yeah,
through
it's
the
good.
comptroller?
It's good till 23, I believe, it said there.
But annually, we have to register with the comptroller. Has that been done?
No.
They usually send an email that's done through their portal.
No. Right, normally that's done before the end of June, have you not seen contact them? I'm surprised. it's
I
like
signed
that.
one, but I don't know if it was this year, or last year, I can't remember, so.
All right, so Rutherford Moss is gonna roll over, but we're in a multi-year agreement with them. We've got Fairbanks. What else, contract-wise, would we expect to see on the next agenda?
InterDigital is, our IT guy thought he was going to retire and retain us, and then after we basically approved the budget, decided that he was going to completely retire, and he is working for, part-time for InterDigital, and they've kind of picked up his business. So it's kind of set up, so that is up for approval or review, or however you want to do it, for all the information there. The base service, the managed workstations, managed server, managed firewall, backup server workstations, etc.
Is that worth getting quotes on to see what else might be out there?
I can if you want, I don't know. He did charge us hardly anything, but said he,
It says 4,600.
no, I meant the guy that retired. That's
Okay.
why we weren't prepared for
Right.
whenever they retired.
I
Well-
think when we bring those new contracts in, it'll be good for a little summary, like this is what the current contract had in it, this is where we're going, and that way we can kind of know.
Hey, he's went way over budget, or, hey, man, he's under budget, let's sign him back up. Spot on. No, when I think of that, you're in trouble. You think of that.
What about the software guy? Are we under contract with him?
Yes, we have $500 a month for maintenance.
Does it renew annually? When does it roll?
June, it's July to June.
So we missed it?
It just rolled over, I hadn't signed anything, it just rolled over.
Is that number 3? What we're looking at?
Yeah. I think that'd be worth looking at. I'd like to see what we're actually spending. Look at the service level on that one. If we have that next time, that would be helpful.
Is that a proprietary software?
Yes.
It's sole source, yeah.
So,
This is Terry, this is number 3.
Yes.
All right. If we can kind of begin putting that in as a regular agenda item, I think that'll help us stay on top of it. Other questions, thoughts, or comments on contracts? What else you got, Dan?
We did have a notice of violation from Morris County Utilities. I talked to Steve, I've also went back and looked at their logs. The rain event wasn't there to constitute a heavy enough flow to cause, we don't know if something shifted in the sediment of the line, or a burp, or whatever happened in the landfill, but we did, I guess, have a release according to US, so.
you had a violation of settlement solids.
Yeah.
And looking at the photograph and talking to Barry at the wastewater plant, it looked like you had a slug of clay. Some had red, it was red, if you looked at the photographs, go through, and we didn't really have enough rainfall to create that, so You know, I don't know.
When was that?
The second.
July 6th.
It was what?
July 6th.
It was dry.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I said, around
Yeah, I
that.
figured you were talking about August second. I was thinking, we could, that could have been a problem.
that's why we couldn't figure.
Yeah, July, it was dry, so
What were we doing construction wise in July?
Nothing.
Normal operation.
So it's just an anomaly. We don't know, it's probably where you had something settled in one of the lines, you know, leachate line inside the landfill or something, maybe one of the outside lines, and it just broke loose and popped through there at the wrong time.
You know, we're topping out, so we're squeezing all different areas of
Yeah.
the landfill, so
Yeah.
we're pumping it, so it may have pushed.
so the violation means
They're, at this
they're
point,
gonna monitor it more.
at this point, they're gonna monitor it, and if it keeps up, then we're gonna have issues. We're thinking, when we get this closure, we should, you know, that could have been rain that we had 2-3 weeks
In
before
June,
that,
May or
that had worked its way down.
Sure. I mean, we had a lot of rain in the spring.
Yeah. But with this capping that whole side of it, I think we're gonna get rid of a lot of this. A lot of the leachate we're generating, any heavy flows where, you know, occasionally they'll complain about they've got a max set on the flow out of the landfill, which I'm negotiating with them now. Because if we had this, excuse me, this expansion, then that's obviously gonna go up. And, we're working with Barry and Mike Howard on that.
Is that BOD?
No, it's just flow, just rate of flow, gallons per day.
The mud that went through?
It's settleable, they call it settlable, I can't say it. Solids, it'll settle out in a, like if you hold a jug and shake it up, and the solids will settle to the bottom, is what the violation was.
We've not had it before, is there a way to know?
I don't think we've ever had it.
Okay.
And it could be that at some point, we need to go in there and, clean and TV those lines again, because it's been, what, 3 years or something like that. That's something else that the state's going to start pushing harder on, is you going in and cleaning those lines and TVing them, which is.
Who does that? Who's done that for us before?
I forget the name of the contractor. It's generally done by a rehab contractor that does all his sewer rehab stuff. You know, they have to clean and TV before they can go in and do internal repair stuff like that. So when we did it before, we got quotes from about 3 or 4 different contractors. And, probably the better thing to do would be to do that same thing again, but make sure we catch one that's working here or, you know, Jefferson City.
There's a guy in town that's got a camera system, but I
Nope.
just don't know how extensive it is.
To do those lines, you have to have a crawler. It's just a little camera that's got, and it crawls back in there. We can't get to the other end of some of those leachate lines. We actually TV'd the ones down in the cell too. And it's a specialty contractor.
Of course it is.
Well, those guys are doing this on sewer lines all over the United States right now, trying to keep them from leaking.
All those old clay pipes,
Clay and concrete.
they're
Clay.
staying them all, aren't they?
Clay and water.
Concrete.
See, when they first started putting these sewers in, that was probably 90% of what went in, and there was a lot of unlined cast iron went in, only where it was real shallow, or they go under a creek or something. But 90% of it was vitrified clay, and some of the concrete, was reinforced, some of it wasn't. A lot of it didn't even have gaskets in the joints.
Now, on the sewer stuff, they go through and they clean out the roots and all that stuff. Is that gonna be a problem in their leachate lines?
You're not gonna have any roots in there. But you will, you know, there's, at times you may get you may get a collapsed line or, you know, a section line collapsed or a break.
Slug of clay.
Well, we got one somewhere.
All right, well, let's put that on our list of things we may have to do that we're gonna pick up tomorrow. All right, got anything else, Dan?
Not tomorrow.
All right, Mr. Bostic, you're up.
So, last month, again, we did the monthly gas monitoring and submitted a report to TDEC. There were no issues noted. Now, I continue to put this on there, but we're not going into the private houses and doing any monitoring because of the COVID issues. Actually, if we wanted to, we couldn't because we've contacted the property owners and they, you know, we understand, they don't want us to come to their houses.
Steve, they might not let you in there again. I don't know if they learned they can turn you away, so.
Well, strangely enough, most of them wanted us to come and do the monitoring because they wanted to know if they had any issues in the house, and we never found any, other than we found one in a garage that had 2 gas cans and 2 lawnmowers in it. But it was straight gasoline fumes, so we kinda told them they might wanna to
Leave the door open.
leave the door open or put a fan in or something. Conrad said the minute he walked down the stairs, he was like, oh man, I don't want any sparks down here. But, item 2 there, the leachate monitoring plan that we've been working with TDEC on, we finally got that, we got the plan approved. By then, you guys got the easement signed to get on the property. And then, after about 2 weeks of trying, we finally got TDEC to agree they want to be out there when we put these in. And that's all scheduled to happen next Thursday. The second annual well sampling will be, we've scheduled it for mid-September, and then this is the Appendix 1 sampling where you don't have to run the 128 or how many ever constituents, it's just like 8 or 10. The closure, I've got the dates on there of the pre-con and the completion date. East Tennessee Turf and Landscape came in Wednesday, I guess, or Tuesday, anyway, and put their silt fence in. And we've got the shop drawings for the geomembrane and geocomposite on Monday. Got those reviewed. You have to have a test lab go in the factory where they're manufacturing this stuff and pull samples from the rolls that are gonna be used on your project and test those for a number of different parameters. We got that set up, and then, he's supposed to start grading work Monday. He's moved some equipment in this week, and I talked to him the day before yesterday, and he's planning on starting Monday. The expansion, we're moving along with the plans. We got the Excel excavation plan complete. The leachate collection and transport are laid out. The final cap and preliminary grading on the final cap is done. The only thing was we gotta fine tune that because the way that cap is, you go up so far, then you got a bench so far and a bench. And those benches, we're getting those graded to, so we can have drainage along them, and then TDEC requires a drainage ditch down the slope of the landfill, so we're just fine tuning that grading. And, what we'll do is at the next meeting, I'll probably bring the drawings and spread them out in here where you guys can take a look at them. And then we'll be ready to submit those to the state.
Any luck on blasting, nothing,
Yep.
no?
It's laid out to blast. I've got the spec from, actually got it from Geos, the geotech that's working with us on, the blasting that they've done, and TDEC is allowed blasting now.
So that really helps us over.
That helps, we're pushing the life out to, depending on how much waste comes in, as much as maybe 16, maybe pushing 19 years. And that's about all we can do. Now, that doesn't include that area that, we discussed where we've got the 500-foot buffer. That just includes the main.
I know you've been working with the committee. Any of y'all got thoughts or comments about how things are going, kind of where we stand? Y'all comfortable we're moving and Steve brings drawings next time we're ready to look? I guess the big question is, are we ready to pay the bill it's gonna take to do it?
Well, what will blasting take off the bill?
Take off the bill?
Well, I mean, it'll have to be cheaper than pecking one.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a heck of a lot cheaper.
Well, that'd be taken off the bill.
Well, the budget that I've got set now, and I thought Jim had brought that last month, and I apologize. That I've got a budget set, and I could get y'all a copy of it for the entire thing, and then I gave Bill a budget for the first phase of it, which is a 6-year life, this morning. He had asked for it the other day, and this thing's been changing every day because my CAD guys, my engineers are working on it, and we've got it to a point now where we're pretty comfortable with the bottom and the top. So the first phase, and again, it includes 125. It includes about $200,000 worth of stuff that you've got to do to existing things out there. As we've talked about, that existing leachate pump station has got to be upgraded, and there's the existing pond right by the road as you come in. It's got to be upgraded to meet TDEC standards for the volume it's got to hold, and then the burner's got to be relocated. So you've got a decent chunk of money up front that's gonna, the entire landfill depends on it, but it's got to be done up front. But I've got a couple more copies of that if anybody wants to take a look at it. Or Bill, if we need to get together again and take a look at this, that'd be fine. I'll be back up here next week one day. I'm not 100% sure.
I know these numbers are changing depending on the process we go through, but last night I just sat down and quickly ran through what I had, and I know these have changed.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to, I guess, the concept more than the numbers, but we had, the expansion was 15,267,000 was
That was the last
one we had,
yeah.
and that would be 1,300,000 tons. So that's $11.74 a ton to develop that. Now, I know those numbers are changing, but I'm just thinking out loud. Bill had gotten some preliminary financing costs that would be at 2%, and if we financed $15 million over 15 years at 2%, paid an annual payment, I estimated the interest to be a little over $2.5 million. I had $2,510,000, and that would be a cost spread over that $1.3 million in tonnage, so that's almost $2 a ton.
So we're at 13.
In financing cost. Then I went back and pulled the audit from last year, and if you take the 2019 operating expenses, and the operating expenses include a little over $300,000 for post-closure costs. So that those are for things in the past. So I think that's something we need to look at. But if you just take those operating expenses for the year, that's $2,340,000, and if you back into the tonnage for that year, we had 74,895. That was the ton, almost 75,000 tons. So that's a little over $31 a ton to operate. In my opinion, that post-closure amount, we would need better projected operating costs to include the closure and post-closure costs along with the development of the landfill. But if you take those costs per ton, we're right at $45 a ton. So I think while we're going through this, we also need to look at the closure, post-closure, the operating, the financing cost, and the development cost, and what's that do to our tipping fee.
Yeah, that's important. If we had done this road, that's what it's gonna cost. Tipping fees going across the scale.
Yeah.
What about this timing and schedule of having to go to financing? How soon would we need money?
Bill and I was talking about that earlier. I think you're probably would go into construction probably maybe February next year, maybe earlier. It's really, we can give you a date on the design and when it'll be submitted to TDEC, but we're not sure, you never know how many rounds of that. So I'm assuming 3 months of TDEC back and forth and getting you permit by around the first of the year, start construction sometime February, March, somewhere right in
Well, the process of getting ready to issue debt is a little
It's
preparation.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah, I
happen
understand.
overnight, so we just need to make sure we got that time in the schedule.
And one thing too, Tony, and Tom and I are gonna have some discussions after, is, in talking to Steve, is this phase development is like 5, we don't have to issue all the debt at once. So we can stagger it, so that'll help reduce some of our
The first phase,
interest costs.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
the way we got it laid out now, first phase is 6 years. It's the rate, we finally, once we got everything, the bottom is what makes the whole deal. So once we finally got it to where we wanted it, the logical place to break it was the first phase would be, you'd have 6 years of waste there.
Can you, in your, cost proposal also include the closure, post-closure estimate?
Yeah,
For those phases?
Yeah.
Because that'll help us.
Tom, was that figure that you just used, that 45, was that for phase 1?
That was the total, I think that was the total expansion that he brought in. That was the last cost estimate we had. So that was
Oh,
all of it. That's a 15 to 16-year
Great.
lifespan. So,
Good.
yeah.
And I think we may have picked up another couple of years.
and that's using a figure that might be, the cost might be considerably lower
After the
than,
blasting comes into play. it could
Yes.
affect that, yeah. And the financing costs could go down. Of course, the financing costs are really not a big piece of it because interest rates are so low.
I guess that's one of the things we gotta think about is when interest rates are at 2, do you go ahead and finance the whole thing versus
yeah.
risking, 6 or 7 years from now, what are the rates going to be?
It's, eventually it's gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
Can you not get an interest rate that .03 or whatever they're giving you?
Yeah. We can try. Funny how that works.
It is.
That 0%.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're right. All right, guys, it looks like we have several pieces about to come together. If we can have a roll up our sleeves to look at both the cost and the financing next month, I think that'd be a huge step forward. All right, any other questions or comments about that or anything for Mr. Bostic? Okay, Dan, talk to us about radios.
Reached out and to get some quotes on, some radios, this past month. Priced 5 handheld radios and 4 fixed radios for certain machinery that are key pieces such as the dozer, the compactor, the wheel loader, and I believe the one in the office would be fixed as well. We came in, we got 3 prices. The lowest one came in at, with, they had tax on it, came in at $88,44.65. And that also included our $500 FCC licensing fee as well. So actually that puts, without the licensing fee, takes it down about 83. The low bidder also, or low quote is also out of Knoxville area, which would be a lot easier to get service if we had any problems.
I guess that's a lot of money. Help me understand why we can't make basically walkie-talkies work for what we need.
We've tried walkie-talkies, they do not
They don't
work. We purchased them last year. They will not reach on the other side.
Okay.
if they're not exactly on the edge, they won't even.
Cell phone reception's not even great out there.
Cell phones don't work.
We did have a company come out was it last fall or this spring? And we demoed a couple different types of radios and handhelds to make sure they would go clear around the property, back, side, front, clear down to, Ring for Life Centers as well, down at that one, it reaches all over.
What's the price difference in the fixed and the handhelds?
About $100.
There's $100 difference in the.
Well, in the actual radio, then you got the converters and stuff that go, because Caterpillar equipment is 24 volt, it has to be converted to 12 volts, so there's some converter.
I just wondered why you couldn't go install handheld devices.
Pardon?
Why you just couldn't use all handheld devices, I mean. I just wondered how much those fixed ones, how much more they were.
They're, like I said, about $100 big, but those would be in the three big key pieces, or the three main key
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah, I get that.
And that way they can continue operations and listen to what's going on. We have to chase down people that are stopping in the wrong area or clueless.
You have to install an antenna or something at the high point or something, man, to make the coverage complete, or it's just?
The coverage worked with just the handhelds. Karen kept one in the office there, and we took the UTV and went around the entire perimeter of the property, top, bottom, around, and it worked great. Better coverage than a cell phone.
Is there is there a fee that you pay per month, or
No, it's just.
no maintenance fees on them, or it's just a one-time?
The other thing I don't know is the FCC licensing. I'm sure that's a one-time big fee, but I don't know what for an annual.
Yeah, you'll pay something every year.
Yeah, but it won't be $500 a year, I wouldn't think.
What we budget for this?
9,500.
All right, what's your pleasure? We got closed because it's budgeted.
Give them the radios. Quit talking about it.
If we want, we need to award the contract to the low bidder, if that's your pleasure.
Make the motion, we award the low bidder.
How's that?
And get
Metro?
this off the.
Yeah, Metro Communications.
All right, I have a motion to award the contract to Metro. Do I have a second? Okay, motion and second. Let's call the roll, please.
Mike Bell,
Yes.
Bob Garrett,
Yes.
John Hofer,
Yep.
Tim Horner,
Yes.
Keith Jackson,
Yes.
Matt Lacy,
Yes.
Tom Rush.
Yes.
All right, so we'll be able to talk to one another here shortly. Any idea on how long it takes to get stuff in and installed?
I'd say the license will probably take longer than anything.
I think that's a fair assessment. All right. Anything else we need to cover while we're together? If not, we'll say it's a good day, adjourn the meeting, we'll see you next month. Thanks.
Yeah, let's try not to run over them. Yeah, or lose them.